Vikings, let's win this game.
Just when it seemed like the biggest story in Minnesota was the quarterback battle, 4 new developments completely changed the conversation. A proven NFL veteran is being linked to the Vikings defense. Questions are beginning to surface about J.J. McCarthy's long-term future. Dallas Turner is embracing a role that carries far more responsibility than ever before. And Christian Darrisaw has finally revealed where his recovery truly stands after a difficult stretch of injuries. If you're a member of the Purple Faithful, these are the developments worth paying close attention to before the next phase of the offseason begins. One of the biggest questions surrounding this team entering 2026 has nothing to do with the quarterback position. It's happening on the defensive front. Ever since Jonathan Greenard was traded to the Philadelphia Eagles, Vikings fans have been asking the same thing. Who replaces that production? Who becomes the guy offenses have to account for every single snap? The organization clearly believes the answer might already be in the building. Dallas Turner is expected to take on a much larger role after posting a promising season that included 9 sacks, 4 forced fumbles, and constant pressure on opposing quarterbacks. But even with that optimism, there's a reality every NFL team understands. You can never have too many pass rushers. That's why the recent conversation involving veteran Cameron Jordan is so interesting. The longtime Saints star is still available, and after recording 10 sacks last season while earning strong grades from Pro Football Focus, there are people around the league who believe he still has something left in the tank. FanSided recently connected Jordan to the Cleveland Browns, who are trying to recover from losing Myles Garrett. But when Vikings fans hear a name like Cameron Jordan become available, it naturally sparks another thought. Could Minnesota be looking at the same opportunity? Could Nolan Teasley follow the blueprint he saw in Seattle, where pass rush depth was one of the foundations of a championship-caliber defense? Jordan is 37 years old. Nobody is pretending he's in his prime, but experience matters, leadership matters, depth matters, especially for a team trying to avoid putting too much pressure on one young player. And if Turner is about to carry the biggest workload of his career, having a veteran mentor and insurance policy behind him could be valuable. The Vikings are trying to contend right now. They believe they belong in the playoff conversation. If Jordan wants one more meaningful run before his career ends, Minnesota might look like a pretty attractive destination. Whether a move happens or not, the fact that his name keeps entering the conversation tells you just how important the pass rush situation has become heading into training camp. Meanwhile, another conversation continues to dominate headlines. And honestly, this one feels even more complicated, because it involves the future of the franchise. The battle under center between Kyler Murray and J.J. McCarthy has become one of the most fascinating storylines in the entire NFL. A lot of people assumed McCarthy would eventually become the long-term answer when the Vikings drafted him. But football rarely follows the script fans right in their heads. Murray arrived with experience, proven production, and the kind of athletic ability that can change games. Early reports suggest he's making a strong impression. Strong enough, in fact, that discussions are now expanding beyond the competition itself. Former Vikings linebacker Ben Lieber recently discussed a scenario that would have sounded impossible not long ago. Minnesota potentially exploring a trade involving McCarthy. Imagine how different that conversation sounds compared to just a few months ago. What if Nolan Teasley evaluates the roster, sees a different vision for the future, and chooses to maximize the young quarterback's value while it remains high? That's not a small discussion. That's a franchise-altering decision, and Lieber's point is difficult to ignore. Teasley wasn't the executive who drafted McCarthy. He has no emotional attachment to that selection. His responsibility is simply to do what he believes is best for the organization. Then there's the locker room factor. If McCarthy falls behind Murray and Carson Wentz on the depth chart, what does that do to team chemistry? How do players who believe in him react to that reality? Those conversations become harder to avoid if the gap between the quarterbacks continues to grow. At the same time, trading him would carry enormous risk. Murray has battled injuries throughout his career. Wentz has his own history of health concerns. The Vikings learned firsthand how quickly quarterback depth becomes important. Sometimes one injury changes the entire season, and despite all the speculation, reports from OTAs suggest McCarthy has looked sharp. According to Alec Lewis, his mechanics are smooth, his throwing has been solid, and his dedication is obvious. So while the rumors continue, the reality is simple. This competition is far from over. In fact, every practice seems to be adding another layer to an already delicate situation. While fans continue debating the quarterback room, another young player is preparing for perhaps the most important season of his career. There's a difference between showing potential and becoming the leader everyone expects you to be. That transition can be difficult. It can be uncomfortable. And now it belongs to Dallas Turner. The former first-round pick experienced a breakout campaign last season after a disappointing rookie year. 8 sacks, 66 tackles, constant flashes of the player Minnesota believed they were drafting. But things have changed dramatically since then. Jonathan Greenard is gone. The attention from opposing offensive coordinators is about to shift directly toward Turner. Double teams will increase. Protection schemes will focus on him. Every successful pass rusher eventually reaches this point. The easy opportunities that sometimes come from playing next to another feared pass rusher may not be there anymore. And yet what stands out most about Turner right now isn't the statistics, it's his mindset. When he recently spoke with reporters, he didn't talk about chasing sacks. He didn't talk about personal goals. He talked about leadership. He talked about helping younger teammates. He talked about becoming a voice inside the room. That's the kind of growth every organization hopes to see from a developing star, because talent gets you noticed. Leadership earns respect. The Vikings need both. Andrew Van Ginkel remains a dangerous piece. Eric Wilson and Jalen Redmond contributed significantly last season as well. But someone has to set the tone. Someone has to become the face of that group moving forward. Turner seems to understand exactly what is being asked of him. Now comes the difficult part. Doing it when every offense knows you're the player they have to stop. The expectations are no longer hidden. They're sitting directly on his shoulders, and the entire defense may rise or fall based on how he responds. And finally, there's a story that honestly might be the most encouraging update Vikings fans have heard in weeks. Because sometimes the biggest offseason addition isn't a free agent signing or a blockbuster trade. Sometimes it's simply getting one of your best players healthy again. For nearly 2 seasons, Vikings fans have held their breath every time Christian Darrisaw's health came up. The talent has never been the issue. When he's on the field, he's one of the best left tackles in football. The problem has been availability. Injuries have repeatedly interrupted what should be an elite career trajectory. But now, for the first time in a long time, there appears to be genuine optimism. Darrisaw recently revealed that his knee feels better than it has in 2 years. Full motion, no major concerns, everything trending in the right direction. That's enormous news for this offense, maybe bigger than some people realize. Protecting the quarterback becomes infinitely easier when your franchise left tackle is healthy. Kevin O'Connell reinforced the positive outlook, explaining that the team is being smart with Darrisaw while also making sure he remains heavily involved with the offensive line group. At 27 years old, Darrisaw should still be entering the prime of his career. If he stays healthy, the impact could be felt across the entire offense. But there was another interesting nugget buried within O'Connell's recent comments. Harrison Smith still hasn't made a final decision regarding retirement. Think about that for a second. One of the greatest Vikings defenders of all time is still weighing his future. O'Connell even joked about being unable to convince Smith to play golf with him. It was a funny moment, but behind the humor sits a very real question. Have we already seen the last snap of Harrison Smith in purple and gold? Or is there one final chapter still waiting to be written? Right now, nobody knows. And that uncertainty feels fitting for a player who has meant so much to this franchise. That's what makes this offseason so fascinating. The Vikings are standing at a crossroads filled with opportunity, pressure, and unanswered questions. A young pass rusher is stepping into a leadership role. A quarterback battle could reshape the future of the organization. A franchise cornerstone is finally healthy again. And a legendary safety still has the entire fan base waiting on one final decision. None of these stories exist in isolation. Together, they're shaping what this team could become in 2026. Through all of it, Vikings Nation remains exactly what it has always been: loyal, passionate, and hopeful. Let me know which storyline you're watching most closely, and as always, keep believing. The road ahead won't be easy, but that's never stopped the Purple Faithful before. Stay tuned. Skol Vikings, let's go.